Yeah. Hey, yeah, you can see Triple X thought that was pretty stupid, but hats off to Blackbeard for the AI generated me smoking a cigar.
Hey, look, I love it.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I've got a whole bunch of other ones I'll use in the future too. Hey, boys and girls, all you patriotic, God-fearing, Constitution, freedom-loving boys and girls, wherever you are, whoever you are, CLS After Dark, episode 3. We got our good friend Triple X. So there's threes right there. We got Triple X on tonight, George. We'll introduce him in a second. Tonight's episode, I didn't know what to title it. I just called it a new order because I figured if I said the other word and added the other word in it, screw tube and all the other stuff, the algorithm would already go against me anyway. So we're just calling it New Order. And George and I, who both spent a lot of time overseas, George has worked for more agencies or organizations than I have, so he brings a different perspective. But we're going to sit and talk about current events at the, kind of the national and international level. And the term I'm using, New Order, is because ultimately, bottom line up front, I believe we have entered into, or the beginning phases of exactly that, a new world order. And we're entering into like a multipolar world. It's no longer unipolar. It's not, we'll get into it. Right. So anyway, so thank you for being here. I got to do justice and I got to give Steve L a joke. I think I messed it up and forgot last time. But here's the joke. We got to start off with jokes. Life is too hard as it is. We don't need all this other BS that's being thrown our way. So a little bit of laughter every now and then. So here we go. Hey, do you guys want to know the difference between me and a calendar? George, you know what the difference between me and a calendar is?
Hit me with it.
A calendar has dates. Thanks, Steve.
You should have told me about this. I would have got on my drum set and I would have given you a rim shot.
Hey, we'll do that at the very end. You can take us. We'll take it out with one more joke and you can do the rim shot at the end. Okay. But bump ching. All right, there we go. God. And before I bring George on here, I mean, most of you guys, if you're watching this live or if you watch this on demand, you should know who George is. But we'll do intros here in a second. We got C. Saline, Minnesota in the house. We got Gene from across the pond with a big one. This is my favorite so far. Learn me something. Tuning in from Momdanistan. So you live in Momdanistan, and here, this is Somali soda. So, Somali soda and Momdanistan. That's pretty funny. And then we got Quest Views with the big woo. Hey, I just gave you a shout out. I don't know if you were here for that, but Triple X was laughing his ass off at some of your AI generated stuff. We got Tennessee in the house.
I was giving you high fives on it.
He says he's going to do a drum roll or something. I don't know what that was, something different, but yeah, it's been a minute, Tennessee. Nice to see you back. Hi, boys. Shout out to Gene. Yeah, there you go. And then we've got Greg Harriman. Thanks, Greg. Greg's in the house. And of course, Quest Views. In the North, we call it Somali pop as opposed to soda pop. That's a little jab at Minnesota there. All right. Hey, thanks for everybody being here. Thanks for the comments. Shout out where you're from. We got some new videos up on Centerline Systems, so go check those things out. Really appreciate everybody doing that and leaving comments. It's the CLS After Dark here. We're trying to have some fun talking about some serious comments. I don't think it's a conflict of interest for me to be sitting here sharing my personal experiences and my opinions. I'm an American. I'm authorized to have an opinion too. And I don't think that contradicts with my business. We make, handcrafted outdoor gear because that's all about survival, and something we're going to start doing more over there is, Mother Nature doesn't care about your politics. When a grizzly bear is eating you alive, he doesn't stop to ask if you're from Momdanistan or who you voted for. When you're drowning in the ocean, it doesn't care if you're donating or, flying the proper flag of the week or, flavor of the month kind of stuff. These are serious conversations and these are adult table conversations. And I'm not 100% sure where we're going to go here tonight. George and I have already talked a little bit earlier in the week. And then I think it was about 2 weeks ago, we kind of touched base again too. But there's just so much serious stuff to go to discuss. So without further ado, let's jump into it. Let's welcome George, aka Triple X, our guest. George, again, most people have probably seen you, but if you don't mind, share a little bit what you're willing to share about you, and then we'll jump into it.
In a nutshell, military law enforcement background, law enforcement, worked narcotics and was full-time SWAT officer. Ended up working with you at the agency, was there for about 5 years. And then afterwards was teaching for an anti-terrorism program, and then a lot of DIA, CIA, and a lot of stuff for other entities for people who are protecting high valued officials throughout the world. And that's about it in a nutshell.
Yeah. George, you want to just start off with one story about how you teased me when I was asleep, my only 4 hours of sleep, on the multiple times we were with each other, how you just messed with me all the time?
I mean, there are possibilities that there might be some photos as you just laying around being, lazy while the rest of us are really working and doing hard work, trying to make America safe again, and you're napping on the job. But I mean, that might be a possibility. There
might be a photo. There might be a photo. I thought you were going to lead with the photo that you took when I asked you to go and count the number of porta potties on that fob, but we'll save that for another day. I think we've actually may at some point in the past, I think we have displayed that on the internet for people to see. Yeah. If you want a really gross picture and you want to find out what, George, let's just see, maybe we'll save that as just like a story before we do the final joke.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay. So let's just get into it. So as I kind of said, and again, thanks for everybody who's watching this, whether you're with us live or if you're on demand. If you're here with us live, hey, you know the deal. I'm looking up here at the camera, also looking at George, but I am keeping an eye on the chat. So if you do have a question for George or myself or a comment, you know the deal. I at a minimum, about every 10 minutes, I'm looking over there and popping up things or taking a break to read them. So we'll keep doing that as always. But if you do have questions, comments, chime in. George, same with you, because like I said, I'm not 100% sure where this is going to go. So I'm just going to jump into it with both feet. The world that you knew is gone. It's over. And just like when the Roman Empire fell, everybody didn't just die. That wasn't the end. The empire was officially over, but all those people were still alive, right? They still had to figure out how to put, food on the table and, keep their house warm and all that kind of crap. So I'm not saying that we're entering into, oh my gosh, the sky's falling and we're all in trouble. Although if you don't follow space weather, you should probably start looking into some space weather. We've got some pretty good coronal mass ejection stuff going on. There's a potential link in that with earthquakes, and we already start to see more of that. And we might see some really good northern lights tomorrow. I think the magnitude of that, it isn't going to cause any type of Carrington event, but I think we're going to have some pretty good northern lights tomorrow night. And I guess I'm really going down that is because, the world goes on, right? That's all I'm trying to say. Nature continues. The world keeps moving forward, but everything around you, geopolitically speaking, is changing. And I'm not saying I've got the proper answer here. To me, it's still dots on the wall. I'm a dots on the wall. I start putting things in their categories, or is how my brain sees them, start connecting dots. And that's helping me better see the picture. It's not like a crystal ball by any stretch of the imagination, but George has got firsthand knowledge of watching me do this, in the operations that he was assisting me on back in the day when we were both much younger, more studlier men. George is pretty studly still, but me, I'm just old and broken. But in seriousness. So if you look at what's going on, and I think I'm just going to shut up right there and then let's let the conversation continue, because somebody's asking, well, what do you mean, Mark? Well, there's a whole litany of issues, and I'm not going to do the notes. I've been doing notes. I could sit down and write 2 pages of notes right now, and we won't get to any of it, and the conversation will go in its own direction. And there's not enough time, and we're not doing 3-hour podcasts anymore. So, George, New World Order, am I smoking crack, or are you seeing things change from the line of work you're still engaged in, your community, your perspective? What say you, sir?
I think you can see it everywhere. I mean, in a lot of different ways, but I think one of the ways I try to step back from it is do a little bit more of what we were talking about earlier, not today, but last week, of doing more critical thinking and not just getting sucked into everything that you see on social media. Kind of going with the beginning of the show. AI. Look how easily you can make something into anything. And there are a lot of things that are being generated now by it. I say both sides. Of course, everybody's trying to get anyone to lean one way or the other instead of just being able to stand there and go, okay, let me think for myself. Let me go ahead and make a decision based off facts, not emotions. And I think right now we're seeing more people who are making decisions based off emotions, which is really crippling us, in my opinion, because the people who are way higher up the food chain, they're the ones who are thinking. They're the ones who are playing chess when we're kind of sitting here trying to figure out what the hell is going on. And I'm trying to fight a battle that's like one step in front of me and take it to like you're driving your car. When you drive your car, you don't look right at the hood. You're looking way down the road to look, hey, am I seeing brake lights? Is there any type of interruption that's going to cause me to move from one lane to the other and protect myself? And I think when we get to that point to where we are, like you're saying, looking through life through a soda straw instead of taking a step back and trying to look at everything with both eyes open and pausing before we just jump right into it and go, I can't believe this happened. And you're looking at something fake or something that somebody has come up with that they want you to dive in on. And, you know, but that means it takes effort. It means that you've got to put your phone down. It means you spend less time on social media. And hell, I mean, you can't even trust half the news agencies anymore because whatever anybody's getting more money or whoever's in control of can push that narrative the most in any way that they want, just to, you know, reach in and know they already have a majority of people who are emotionally, you know, affected and can easily just snap like that. So I like critical thinking. I think if we had more people who did a little bit more critical thinking, a little bit more research, I think we would, as people, would have a little bit more control and wouldn't be as easily controlled and or divided as easy as they're making it out to right now.
So let's just kind of use that as a nice little, not even a segue. Let's just follow up on that. So it's not all doom and gloom, right? And again, there will be another Steve L joke at the very end, but what do we do? How do we combat it? Well, again, part of it is, you know, and I hate to say it from my perspective, and in black pill, I think, you know, everybody wants to, because again, we're being conditioned to us versus them, and we're not being conditioned to be critical thinkers, analytical thinkers, thinking for ourselves. What does it mean when I say I'm black pilled? Well, you know, I don't know what the quote unquote official, if there is an official, you know, definition of it, but I mean, I just look around and I can just see it for what it is. So if that's black pilled, well, then I guess I'm, you know, I'm beyond black pilled. I mean, you know, you're not going to piss on my head and tell me it's raining. I'm just not putting up with that, you know. So to, you know, some of the things that George was just talking about, I think there's a positive we can kind of start with right there. And George is talking about one of them. He used an example, something, and I don't remember, it's not my original thought. I heard it from someplace. But, you know, when you're under stress or you're doing a task for the first time, and it's a stressful task, it's maybe dangerous, maybe your job is on the line, or, you know, it's asking that girl out on a date or whatever that thing is, you know, those stressors, that those chemical dumps, your body's doing its job. And, you know, and just like if you were in a fight or a gunfight for real, you know, unless you get a lot of experience or you have a lot of experiences in those type of situations, your vision, tunnel visions. And, you know, I just remember the first time I jumped out of an airplane, I didn't enjoy the beauty and the splendor. I literally was looking through a soda straw. That's all I could see was a soda straw. And my sphincter was way smaller, way tighter than a soda straw. But that was, you know, but then by the 13th or 10th, I can't remember if I have 13 or 15 jumps total, but like by about, you know, near close to 10, you know, like maybe 6 or 7 or something like that, you're really now your vision's expanding, you're in way better control, you're having a great time, you're realizing just how awesome skydiving is, you know, you're doing that. So George, you know, maybe we just talk about that, because, you know, critical thinking. Well, is there a way we can practice that? Is there a way we can right now mitigate the soda straw effect? And, so we're better prepared, if something bad does happen, tomorrow or later this year, or hopefully never, but, that's not reality, something bad is
I,
definitely happen.
I mean, for me, and I say this for me because sometimes, I mean, I find myself scrolling on, Instagram, and I see stuff and certain things, especially if it's going to be anti-American for, all the years we have served to, protect that flag, and stuff like that. That initial jolt that hits me is like, man, I would like to go over and punch that dude in the throat. That's the first thing that comes to my brain. But then I'm like, okay, where's that person at? I'm nowhere near him. It's not happening in front of me. And is it even really real, or did someone just come up with something? And there have been a couple of videos that have been AI generated where you're looking at that.
Yep.
For me, I just got to take a deep breath. You know, at times when I can feel it getting to me, I take that deep breath, and then there might be comedians that I'll just look up on Instagram that I follow that I think are funny as hell, and it completely changes the way I am. Or I'll just take a breath and put my phone down and step away from it, and then think, is that really happening? And if it is it their right to burn the flag? Unfortunately, yeah, it is. You know, it's like if somebody saw me carrying my pistol, I carry concealed. But if somebody knew or whatever and they got mad because they're like, you shouldn't have the right to carry it, and they're having a meltdown. My brain, I'll be like, why? Why are you having a meltdown over something as simple as this? Or, I have an American flag on my truck and you're gonna lose your shit because I have that. You know, it's almost to the point to where I look at things like that when people start snapping. To me, I think there's more of a mental ill crisis to where people have gotten to the point to where they're not able to just pause, and they're to the point that they want to snap. And the unfortunate part of, and I look at it as the unfortunate part, there's a lot of people who have a lot of training who have done some really good things for our country. At the end of the day, you know, and I go along with this because I was watching it on a podcast. The thing is, everyone in the world, and I talk to women about this too in self-defense. Every person in the world has a monster inside them. Everyone. It's whose monster is going to come out first and be the most vicious at that moment in time. And a lot of times you have no idea where that might take you. But the people who want to snap and push and do these things and start to threaten, I think that's what people want. They're wanting to push. And when I say those people, I'm talking about our politicians. I'm going to go with the shooting of that male nurse. All right. Should the person who shot him be held responsible? Absolutely. In my personal opinion, I think it was the guy didn't realize his pistol was taken, because most people, as you know, as a concealed carry instructor, most people who are carrying weapons and they're not used to carrying weapons, you can always see because they're touching themselves. They're touching that weapon to make sure they still have it. I know plenty of police officers, senior police officers, who have shown up to work without their gun in their holster. Didn't even tell that there was a weight difference in their gun belt. So you have a guy who is fighting ICE, who's armed. No one knows if that federal agent removed it or that gun fell out or whatever, but we know the gun was taken away and it was his weapon. There's a lot of fighting going on. These guys have the guns in their hands as they're fighting. I would imagine that somehow or another, that guy thought he still had his gun. He was going for it. Somebody popped off a round It might have been accidental, more than likely, because they had their finger on the trigger while they're fighting. And then the other officer thought, hey, maybe we're getting shot at, and shot the guy. An unfortunate accident. Okay. Unfortunate situation for everyone. But if you listen to and read any of the stuff that's been capitalized in the signal chat that he was part of, and listening to what the mayor said and what city council personnel have said and how they've been trying to control law enforcement, in my opinion, they've been weaponizing U.S. citizens to attack and fight the federal agents who are there to do their job. Now, I don't think that every ICE operation is perfect or anything else like that. But the moment we encourage our citizens to interfere with law enforcement, use their cars, chase them, hey, circle them, blow their whistle, get in their OODA loop, break down their communication, watching real live personnel going up to cars and knocking on their windows saying, who are you? I need your driver's license. They're not police officers, but they're citizens wanting to get rid of ICE. Looking at this and then telling citizens, hey, next time, bring your weapons. You guys should arm yourself against federal agents. If we're telling our citizens who are believing this and thinking, hey, I should go ahead and take my gun to this rally and I should do this and have this thought process, and I'm all about anyone carrying a weapon. But if you already have it in your mind that you're going to go somewhere where federal agents are doing their job, you're being told to carry a weapon, you're being told to fight them, and they already know that they're in your head. Politicians are wanting stuff like this to happen.
All right. And if we can, right there, let's just end it right at that comment right now, just for now. Okay. Because I don't want to get us too far away from, because we don't want to get too much into the detail, and which I have no problem getting into the details. I think I've saw it a little bit differently than you did, but it doesn't take away any of the points you just made. At the end of the day, and this is what I'm talking about, we're in a new order, and new tools, new weapons, there's new technologies employed on this battlefield. And the big picture here, and I'm going to say this multiple times. This is going to be my new phrase, and it's from a movie. If anyone disagrees or is already like, those, support this or don't support that, the point I'm trying to make is the you and I's, we are being set up. We are being manipulated. This is part of the new order to keep us at each other's throats. And the line, it's from a movie. I'm going to start using it all the time. You and I are fighting over the scraps at Longshank's table. We have people who are P-filing. We have P-filers out there. We have horrendous crimes being committed. We have billions of our tax dollars going to foreign countries for things that none of us want, and the things that the majority of us do want. And we're a constitutional republic. But if you do a poll and 80% of the country says, yeah, voter ID, that's a no-brainer. Well, why isn't that happening? And everything like, what Triple X just talked about, that to me is that, again, that's it's just like the Epstein dumps. There's a new order. Something else is going on, and they're really good at it right now. The government has had lots of time, and George has worked in the government. I've worked in the government, and some of you guys have worked in the government, or most of you read a book and you know what the government's capable of, and you know what these operations and some of this illicit, activities, what they entailed. You know what your government's capable of. Do you really think they give a crap about me or you? Or like George just brought up 2-3 great points. And back to the adult table, start thinking for yourself. You got to start exercising critical thinking, because these are going to be very dangerous and very trying times. And I think evil wants us at each other's throats. Because George is right. That guy had every right to carry there. Well, what about 11 days prior? Well, that was 11 days prior. Why wasn't he arrested? Is your argument he did something bad, back then? Well, why wasn't he arrested then?
Exactly.
And then you just keep going forward. I personally think, and this is what you're going to get. And a couple episodes ago, somebody, brought up a good point. There's no operation that's ever going to be 100%.
Oh, no.
Look at if we talk about Venezuela, and I'm going to mention Venezuela because that's part of the new order. But if you look at that operation, that's about as near perfect as an operation could be. And that's unbelievable because it was nighttime. It looks like it had new technologies, new weapons. We're definitely getting our combined arms, cooperation down. This is not Desert One back in the day of Carter with, trying to free the embassy in Iran. We didn't have we don't have any mistakes like that. But we still had some, individuals who were injured. We don't know. And it looks like we smoked a whole bunch of guys, so the intel capabilities, both, human, all the INST, SIGINT, ELINT, all that, our military capability, the capability of our tier 1 units. So again, we're not having that type of conversation because we're obviously very capable. But if you're going to have a bunch of guys running around with masks on, just, rolling people up on the street, and then you've got other politicians, not other, but politicians, here at the local level, governor and the mayor, and as you pointed out, and other elected officials, the lieutenant governor was opposed. I think that's who it was. She's involved in that signal thing as well. So this is all being coordinated, and it's not those people, who are out there and, why didn't the mayor go down there and stand in front of ICE and make a stand? Hey, no, I'm the mayor of this town and I don't agree with what you're doing. But to George's point, yeah, but what we're doing is legal. It's 18 USC, crime has been committed. Now what you're doing is now a crime. But this is what we're being incited to do. This is what we're being enticed to do. We are being led down the path of fighting over the scraps at Longshank's table. How much more money is the government spending on things that I thought we just voted that we didn't want to spend money on? So just critical thinking, and so Triple X, you want to go back to that part right there? I didn't mean to cut you off, but I didn't want to get too much into the nuts and bolts. Again, I think I know how to call it, but I wasn't there, so I'm not going to sit and say it. But I don't think the guy ever touched his weapon. I think he had the weapon on him. It's America. He's got every right to do it. Whether you should or shouldn't, I'm not going to, Janine Pirro and all these other. No, if you have the right to do it, you have the right to do it. It's the same thing. I hate to say it, Europe. What's sad is I see counter protesters showing up, and if they fly their country's flag, the cops go after them. It's like, hang on, what? I don't have a right to be here? Like, well, you're inciting violence. Hang on, if flying my country's flag is going to incite violence, then you need to protect me from whoever wants to do violence against me, or I need to have the legal authority, the constitutional right to defend myself against people who mean to do me harm. And that already exists in our country. Yeah. But we're not doing that. And the language has even changed. And there's going to be people who watch this and who are going to say, oh, he's a friggin' leftist or no, that's a closed-minded way of thinking. Back to what we're getting at in George's comments. You can see I'm getting a little animated because those comments to me really highlight it. We are being set up to only focus on the color of your jersey and the color of my jersey, while the quote unquote, elected officials who all wear the same jersey, and you and I ain't ever going to be able to buy one of those things on eBay or any of that stuff.
No,
they're taking our money for their jerseys, which is a special jersey for them. They don't give a shit about blue jersey team or red jersey team. We're being stuff to keep us distracted. Go ahead.
I'll give you a prime example of the jersey. You look at former President Obama wanted Kamala Harris to be the new president of the United States, spoke very highly of her, talked about her being the first Black female, addressed young Black men. Hey, if you don't vote for her, if you don't do what I tell you to do, which again takes away that critical thinking for yourself, what benefits you and your family, you are basically a traitor to your skin and a traitor to her. Fast forward a couple years, he comes to Virginia. You have a former United States Marine, Black female, running for governor. He shows up. Now, before you were talking about, hey, you got to vote Black, you got to do this, you got to do this. He shows up and says, hey, everybody, vote white. Gets the NAACP to back a white lady. So when it works to say, hey, color of your skin, but when it really boils down to, it's the color of the jersey that everybody's looking for, like you said, the one that we're not going to be able to get. But nobody looks at that because everyone sat there and said, you know what? I should vote white. And then voted that lady in. And within 24 hours, she's crippling Virginia.
Yep.
And now everyone is up in arms being like, how did you raise our energy so much? My bill was 3 times as much now. You gave yourself 150% pay raise? How did that happen? Where is this? Where is that? It's just like, but you had the opportunity to make a difference. But again, we work on people's emotions. We know how to make things work. And for me, I'm sitting there going, if you're telling me that the NAACP is turning their back on the first Black female governor that you could ever have, who is a patron and served for this country in the United States Marine Corps, what more could you ask for if you want to be pro-Black? But then you turn around and like, we're going to turn our back on her because she's not wearing the same color jersey that we want.
Well, if I can, just on that.
Go ahead.
And that's, see, my point here and for tonight, and we're not going to have time, and that's all right. I like George, I'm just trying to like throw some stuff out there. I want people to start thinking. I don't have the answer. I might be totally wrong. I hope I'm totally wrong. You know, it's another one of those, man, I really want to be wrong on this, you know, because if I'm right, this is not, it's no bueno, right? But just that right there, this is what our social media, you know, this is one of the evilest things that's ever happened to humanity. AI, you know, we all are using it. I'm using it. I did it in that little intro thing, you know, Blackbeard, you know, heck, I'm even trying to use AI write-ups for my videos just to try to find a way to penetrate through the defenses of ScrewTube's AI, you know, and their algorithm, you know, so we're trying some different things because it's clear that, you know, I'm shadow banned just as so many other people are. But this is the whole point. You know, if you think about it from a military perspective, you know, like, or however you want to do it, but like if you capture somebody, in order to maintain control of that person, in the military, we had this thing called the 5 S's, right? And one of them is, well, you got to search them, right? You got to safeguard them. I mean, you know, because you're not supposed to let prisoners, you know, just get eaten up or killed by the crowd. So see, we're already violating some of those rules in some of these recent scenarios. Not us. I'm saying you can see how one side is like, yeah, that doesn't matter. But, you know, search them, silence them, safeguard, you know, speed them to an area where you can, you know, process the information properly. And I think I said silence, but, you know, just you don't want them talking to each other. Well, that's what's happening now. There's a bifurcation going on. We're being polarized into, you know, these camps internally, domestically, because in the shifting, in this larger geopolitical shifting climate, I think that's taking place, you know, a weaker America. And this is what they've been working towards for a long time. Evil has been doing this for a long time. I'm a product of the 80s and the 90s. We didn't have race issues. I mean, you know, like, and I heard somebody again the other day say, oh, America's like one of the, you know, it's a racist country. I'm like, what other country have you ever lived in? Shit for brains, you know, smooth brain person. You want to see racism? Go live in, you know, 80 to 90% of the rest of the countries on the planet.
Yeah.
Their racism exists here in America. Of course it does, because we're humans, right? There's always going to be that. You don't even understand what racism or poverty or depravity or corrupt government, but it's coming here. And I saw a comment in the chat already, and some of you guys know, because I know some of you from overseas and some who will watch this later are from overseas. You know exactly what I'm talking about and what's going on in your country. Well, that's coming here. So you like to what you're just getting at there, George. To me, I think that's all part of the master plan. Hey, keep us, again, it's we're sitting here fighting over the scraps at Longshank's table to keep us all preoccupied So we're no longer asking the correct questions, and we don't care about the outcome. And it gets, because those people wear a different jersey. The politicians are quote unquote betters, elected officials. They wear a completely separate jersey. And I don't know if it's Rothschilds, World Economic Forum, Soros, whatever that is, right? But there is obviously some kind of world elite. And I think the bullshit that they've given us in the Epstein files really points to that. But, can you even trust even any of that anymore? So I think we're in part of this new world order. And I'm going to try to put a positive spin on it. And, because I don't want it to be all negative. I'll turn it back over to Triple X here in a second. But perhaps, just perhaps, Trump and his administration, I don't think this is the case, but I'm willing to entertain it because I'm an adult and, we've got to think it through. Maybe they think using the Ring of Sauron to fight Sauron will actually produce good things. I don't agree with that. If you're going to let Epstein people slide because you're going to make them start doing the right thing, how are people who have committed such heinous and evil, just acts of pure evil, that guy or gal is thinking about how to kill you, stab you in the back, screw you over every chance they get. Blackmail isn't really all that great of a tool. It just isn't. But that's where we are. We're all sitting here talking and arguing about stupid, nonsensical things. I could add more, but I'm going to shut up and bring it over to you, George, and then give you a chance to comment. And then once you're done responding, then I'm going to go to the comments in the chat. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think there's a lot on the table, to be honest with you, and I think people like to create as much dust as possible so you can't see what's going on. It's like a magic show is how I look at it. Create all this, something pops up. Oh shit, we need an active shooter.
If you don't mind, George, just for everybody watching, or when you watch this, somebody right now might say, "Give me an example." I can't even keep up with how many examples of what George just said. The intention, what he means there is, for somebody saying that doesn't happen. Look at anytime any politician gets out there and agitates, whether it's Nadler who's saying ICE agents should be shot, Fry from Minneapolis, or whoever it is, Klobuchar, or Waltz, or whatever politician, right? And same thing even on the other side, eye patch guy. Well, how are we supposed to make money? No, all of that is meant to keep us distracted so we don't actually keep pressing and asking the question. Mm-hmm. And the examples of that, unlike the left, I actually could sit down and just give you a gazillion examples right now. There are so many examples of what George is already hitting at, boys and girls. It is hard to keep up with them, and that is also by design. What governments really? We're the government does no wrong. Just listen to the language. I mean, that's the language of a guilty person. Well, I don't know what you're talking about. What are you saying that there was people who were raping little children at Epstein Island? What are you talking about? Or, I don't understand your question. It was a simple question. What's a boy? What's a girl? I don't think, it's happening so often, all over the place. See, I'm sorry, George. It's so frustrating to me right now.
Well, it is. I mean, the thing is, let's just go with the whole entire thing with the child trafficking, the raping of kids, the all that nonsense. And I'm just going to call it nonsense, and that'll just be
I'll call it evil.
But at the end of the day, I have a hard time listening to and being in former law enforcement, being able to see after action reports and stuff like this. I have a hard time with, well, hey, it's not his fault that he wanted to have sex with a 5-year-old, but he's a 40-year-old man, but it's not his fault. And to listen to the excuses of, well, it was the 5-year-old's fault because of how she or he was wearing their clothes or anything else like this. And for those people who want to sit there and say, well, it's the 5-year-old's fault, that's the moment that I want to go up to them and go, hey, how many kids you got? And they're going to sit there and, I got 3 or 4 kids. All right. You have a 5-year-old? Yeah. Okay. I need you to bring your 5-year-old down to the police department. And then I'm going to take that parent and I'm going to strap them down to a fucking chair. And I'm going to tell them, hey, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to dress your 5-year-old up. And I'm going to let that fucktard come in here and have his way with your kid in front of you.
Wow, that got dark.
And then, of course, I wouldn't allow it to happen. But if that person doesn't try to come out of that fucking chair,
yeah, I see you're going. Yeah.
Then you know what? You don't need to be a parent, because you're just as culpable as everybody else who's allowing their kids to get fucking raped.
Well, and right there. And but this never happens though. Like, so that was a dark example, but it happens all the time. It just happened again, just when it does make the news, another couple who, adopts a child and then the child dies because the child's been, AR'd to death, or they're taking pictures of the child. So I mean, don't freak out of George's example right there, because it's the truth. I mean, like, this is taking place and there is some level of complicity. And this is part of the bad thing of this new order. I really think some people might think they're fighting the good fight and trying to keep, because we're probably not going to even get into the economics of what's going on around us in the world right now. Again, we're entering into a multipolar world. I personally think there's no doubt about it. But by ignoring all of these other things, and somebody would say, well, that's the small thing. What will any of that matter if we lose the country, or if we lose those, the Western Hemisphere or whatever? Well, my question would be, what does any of it matter? You could save the whole world, but we sold our soul to do it. Then that wasn't worth saving. Well, but our industry might collapse or whatever, then that industry that should collapse. We cannot sustain as a nation, as a people, if we're just going to turn a blind eye to this graft and corruption and this evil. And, at a minimum, I think the Epstein files, the release, I think it's a sleight of hand, but what we're already seeing shows that, hey, no, those people in charge are what George just described. Those are some evil, sick people, and they're in charge. How did we get to this place? Is this, we are electing these people? How is this happening?
The thing is, I'm big on protecting kids, but the big reason I'm big on protecting kids is, one, it's the right thing to do. That's what doing right looks like. And two, those kids are our future. How those kids, when they grow up, whether they join the military, they're electricians, plumbers, whatever they might be, cybersecurity, whatever they grow up to become, if those kids are treated like rag dolls and thrown to the wolves and not defended and not protected, we're losing our future.
Yeah, well, don't forget, XXX, those aren't children. That's a clump of cells. So again, part of the new world is just even the language we use, what's acceptable discourse. If, and I saw somebody in the comments, I'll get to the comments in a second. Thanks, guys. But somebody's saying also from the 80s, if somebody in the 80s, even a Democrat, again, do your own research. It was only just 10 years ago, Democrats weren't as crazy as they are now. Go back to the 80s. And if somebody said, that a child is just a clump of cells, what? And how, so there, again, think for yourself. How did we get here? How did we get to this state in our society where we're actually having conversations with people like this? We are electing people like this. We have people like this, formulating our national domestic policy, who can't tell you, answer these questions, who can't give you an honest answer. They won't agree with what George just said. They won't think anything's wrong with that. They won't sit there and tell you that men cannot give birth. It's simple. How is that hard? That's offensive, or it goes again. Well, what are you trying to do if you can't speak truth to people? Then you are intentionally lying to them, or allowing their fantasy and their psychosis to persist by not confronting them with the truth. And I think that's part of the new world order. I think that's exactly what it's designed to be. we can't have independent thinkers. We can't have family. We can't have Christians. Oh my gosh, you believe in God? No, the government is your God. Not God, not Jesus Christ. The government is your God. So you better get on the program. So look at everything that gets attacked. If you're a man, you try to be a man, geez, you even hold the door open for somebody and they shoot you like, knives at you out of their eyes. And this is all being done intentionally. And we've got a generations of people. I don't know how my generation went along with it. I really don't, but I apologize to the rest of the world. People of my generation are some of the stupidest protesters that we see out there. They're arguing things. And if you ask them a question, like, well, hey, what do you think? Well, he's deporting da. Hey, Barack Obama has, already deported like 4 times as many people in those cases. Oh, that's not true. And then they get angry and violent with you. So there's something very insidious, something very evil going on, because we got people who think you as a human being are nothing more than a clump of cells.
Well, I don't know how that makes any sense. It kind of goes back to what you said, though. I mean, I think it all boils down to just hate. I mean, you listen to people who don't like Trump, and they don't sit there and say, well, I don't like him because of this. The first word is hate. And, how dare he want to take people off of welfare and have them go get jobs. And then you watch people on social media going, I've been used to getting $5,500 a month. And in my head, I'm going, if I got $5,500 a month, I could see me, and especially if it was happening for years, why I wouldn't want to work. I could totally get that. Why should I work? The government's been giving me $5,500 a month. I'm not paying taxes on shit, and half of those people get a return. I mean,
well, and don't forget, those people think they're getting away with something, where the reality is the politicians who are, representing evil, they're the ones who really are benefiting.
Oh yeah,
hey, absolutely. I've got this person who's going to vote for me the rest of their life. They're going to do this. I can rile them up. Jerry Nadler again. Hey, I think you should shoot ICE officers. I mean, and we see this in our media, right? I guess and I apologize, everybody. Apology, but no apology. Conversation went in the direction it did. I kind of had envisioned I was going to talk a little bit more of the international relations, geopolitical side, but I don't even know if we're going to get there. Because again, you just look, if you just look at what's going on right now, I mean, these are the useful idiots. And when they're no longer useful, they'll be unalived, right?
Yeah.
They're usually the first people, and history shows this. That's not me just speculating. I mean, it is speculation based on historical fact from totalitarian regimes, right? So yeah, you guys are the useful idiots and you'll be rounded up and taken care of first. But it's so entrenched into our society right now, and that's by design. So if Trump is trying to do the right thing and he uses law enforcement in a legitimate way, now put the shooting aside, but that was bound to happen. Again, when the lady in the car got shot, I was doing Jack's podcast over at Black Scout, and I was like, I'm just surprised it took this long. This is exactly what evil wants to happen. You and I are sitting there fighting over the scraps at Longshank's table. There's all this confusion, all these other variables. It's going to happen, and it's going to benefit us. And if it doesn't happen, and if you, the conservative or whomever, Christian, white male, a black family, a Hispanic family who believes in family values, because look, if you're any color than white and you believe in traditional values and norms or the American way, man, they hate you worse than they hate me right now. I'm kind of feeling a little relieved, like I'm not the most hated person in America anymore. It's people of different melanin content who happen to want to raise a family and don't want to pay as much in taxes, for the love of Pete. Those guys are really getting lambasted. Like you just said, the NAACP example, Triple X. Hey, man, this is going to be she'd be a great governor, right? And okay, I don't care that she's black, but you do. But now you're going to vote against her because she doesn't want to give the bank away, doesn't want to steal anybody's, money. And Virginia is already suffering, just like Mom Donnie stand, learn me something. Mamdani how's that working out for you? You know, what's that going to be like, New York? And then all those people in those interviews, yeah, you're going to vote for him? Yeah, I'm going to vote for him, Mamdani. What are his policies? I don't know. Hey, you know, but, you know, da-da-da-da-da. You know, or women talking about accepting the burqa. I mean, and this list is on, and it's parroted and echoed on the other side. Well, you shouldn't bring a gun to. No, it's America, man. That the Second Amendment doesn't limit where I get to carry a gun. No, so we can have a different adult conversation about how you should conduct yourself and what are the ramifications. Hey, I can carry a gun in Minnesota if I want to go to a bar. I've already heard people say, well, you can't carry a gun in a bar. That's not true at all. You totally can. You can even have a drink if you're carrying. But the threshold is different, right? You know, so you just got to be an adult about it. Well, he brought a gun to a bar. I bring a gun everywhere I go. You know, there's other conditions. Let's just be adult. There's other factors here. Did you initiate it? Are you the innocent party? You know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You know, not going to pick apart that video because that's exactly what evil wants us to do. The point is these conditions have been set by evil higher powers. So we sit there and fight over these scraps, and we don't sit there and pay attention to what's really taking place. What's going on? Why Venezuela? Why these? What's up with Greenland? Because if it's Greenland, why isn't Iceland? What about Mexico? What about Canada? What about the UK? You know, there's all kinds of stuff going on there. What about the EU? Do we just tell them to piss off? You know, you guys are done. Should we kick the UN out of the country? There's so many other things going on here. China's making plays, rare earth elements. Look, America is the largest producer of oil in the world. We don't need the Middle East. I mean, you see what I'm getting at? There's other things going on here, but man, I hope we're not using the Ring of Sauron to fight Sauron, because that's just not going to work. George, we're at 50 minutes. We're going to end up going just a couple minutes long. I want you to have a chance to respond to what I just said. Then I'll go to comments, and then we'll do an outro.
I say go to comments.
Oh, you don't have anything to respond? Did I finally?
You pretty much said it all.
Okay. All right, here we go. I don't remember where we left off. George usually has a lot of shit and grief to give me. So that caught me seriously, boys and girls. If you saw me pause and I stuttered for a second, I was like, I can't believe he just did that. Good move. You know, normally George would have been like, yeah, let me tell you. So here we go. Yeah, we learn me something. Welcome back, Triple X.
Thank you.
VTech, Old and Broken. That's the spirit. Oh, hey, I didn't say dead. There's a great movie. The only thing you can tell about an old broken man in this line of work is that I'm a survivor. You better be careful. Yeah. And I'm old and broken. I might be going to some other things. So, and then Tennessee, that was the ICE thing. Yeah. See, again, let's not argue over the scraps, and there's language, and we could spend a whole hour talking about that video in of itself in that event. And that's not the point here. Gene, welcome to the UK. Union flag and hey, I remember that part of the conversation. That was what I'm getting at, Gene. Exactly. Oop. Sorry, I just screwed up, boys. Give me a sec. Here we go. Yeah, sorry, I hit the wrong button. Gene, again, all around the world, we are doing the bidding of the world elites, the lizard people, for their new world order. Yeah, we're going to follow through and have more conversations about this topic, because there's the evidence. It's just all around. So wake up, start applying the 5W2H, start asking, you know, like George was saying, be critical thinking, analytical. Ask yourself, why, hang on a second. Why are you telling me to hate that person over there right now? What's that all about? Why aren't we arresting it? Why has no one been arrested, boys and girls? Why has no one been arrested for anything? And again, somebody's saying, well, you're not providing examples. Because the examples, the list is so long, we'd be here for the next 3 hours. Crimes have been, here, I'll just do it my favorite. General Milley committed sedition at a minimum, if not treason. How come he has not been arrested? UCMJ. That is sedition, if not treason, under the UCMJ. He was, you know, if you don't know who I'm talking about, you know, that's all I'm going to say on that. And same with, what's his face? That guy, you know, how many people died because of that? See, we're not even talking about that stuff as a country anymore. This new world order actually started once evil realized the benefit of how they could use Corona and test and see how far they could get people to do stupid shit. That's where it started. Everything prior to Corona is the before times for me anyway. Gene, If our votes really mattered, that would they even let us vote? No, exactly. That's exactly it. If they really mattered, they wouldn't give us the chance. AVV in the house. Nice to see you, sir. I'd vote for a few more of my color jerseys and office here in Minnesota. Hell, any jersey that other than blue would be. Yeah, but I totally agree with you. Again, well, but you did. It's because somebody would argue, well, would you vote for Kamala? No, but Trump isn't a conservative. He's a Democrat. Prior to him running for office, the Democrats loved him. Trump's a Democrat. He might be a Clinton era Democrat, but he's a Democrat. He's not a conservative. Look at his stance on gun rights. That's all I'm going to say there. But yeah, but I hear you, AVV. I'd at least have some people that are a little bit closer to my, the conservative movement and maybe, hey, can we just have 10% who know the Constitution and want to, abide by it? Can we just have 10%? You were dropping some truth bombs. Gene was giving you some props. You were on target there.
Thank you, Gene.
Learn me something, same thing. AVV, we're inundated. Things that are impossible to believe. Yeah. And it's day after day. And I think that's done intentionally. So we don't have time to talk about it. And we don't have time to focus on it. And it just keeps us all in our little crazy brains and our little echo chambers and, blue jersey, red jersey stuff. Mike Dragoo checking in from Kansas saying all by design. Thanks, Mike. They are trying to deceive us. Yeah. And it's apparently not very hard to do. Mike, back to World War III. We're going to follow up on this. Like I said, didn't get a chance to even talk the geopolitical things that I think are going on, but the unfortunate side effect is the things that hurt us first is what George and I started talking about, which is the domestic side. And that's what's going to work. And we're feeling it right now. Here, I'll just say this. You open your borders and try to make arguments, just like saying that humans are just clumps of cells. And if you start making those type of arguments about your borders and your country, that's by design as well, to get cowards to go along with it and stupid people to buy into it. And then you won't have a country. And we're already seeing that happening in our country. Look, I've lived, and I'm not somebody who's visited or thought of going to a third world country. I've lived there, not just done combat operations, but lived there. Man, it is a completely different animal. It's a different way of thinking, and saying, well, I've traveled to Paris. Well, I guess that almost is kind of the equivalent now, right? That actually is a conversation that could be open for adult table, debate. Seriously. But that's not a third world country, right? But again, you see the joke there. So no, there's something else going on, and that was by design too. And that, I think, does lead into that World War III comment you're making there, Mike, because again, new world order moving into a multipolar world, and conflict is probably right around the corner because it almost seems to be inevitable in these type of circumstances, historically speaking. So, Mike, New York is marked for, it's no longer New York, Mike. Learn me something. It's Momdanistan, according to him. Frank, nice to see you in the house. Always refreshing, especially as a person in Momdanistan. Oh, here's a new one. Momdani scammer. Mama scammer?
Mama scammer.
Mama scammer. I like that. Thanks, Frank. Appreciate it. And then we got Gene about the Paris comment. Yeah. And then we got another person showing up from Nebraska. All right. But yeah, that Paris, really, I mean, if that's what you want, that is what you will get. And you will get it. And only one of two things will happen. And both of those things involve violence.
Yep.
Period. Wake up. Grabs that long shanks table. There's a completely different game afoot. All right, Triple X. Well, let me get that off of there.
No, you're good.
We'll start wrapping it up. Comments. Where do you want to go? What do you want to say?
I think first and foremost for anybody is take care of your own bubble. And I would say that if you're the alpha of your family, or if your wife is the alpha, I mean, it don't matter. But if you're that person who's the leader of the pack of your family, you got to make yourself right before you can lead. And making yourself right during these times with work, with wondering what your kids are being taught in school, that might go against what you and your family's beliefs are. Um, School should be for learning, not for brainwashing your kids. And
If you're taking 4 and 6-year-old and 8-year-olds and even 14-year-olds out of school and you're teaching them anti-ICE protest songs, I don't care if you and I can sit as adults and have a conversation about those operations as adults. You're doing this intentionally with children. You're
yeah,
an evil SOB. Yeah, like you need to be fired immediately. Like no, none of that shit should be in there. Period. Hey, if we can't sit and talk about Christ in school, you better not be talking about that other stuff. And they're doing it. So again, welcome to the new order. The war is already begun. Sorry, George. That's just
no,
you can
I
tell
mean,
I'm fired up, man.
I think having strong values. I mean, if you believe in the man upstairs, you believe in them. If you don't, you can still have strong values. You should know the difference between right and wrong. You should show your kids the difference between right and wrong,
Amen.
and just build off of that. I mean, not all of us are going to live forever. I mean, I had I have a deal with the man upstairs. My goal is to get 100. I almost want to go with what Joe Rogan says: once you make it past 50, take all the fucking steroids you can and live life to be the strongest motherfucker you can be every day of the week. But I do believe that you have got to be good within yourself to be a great leader for your family. And there's going to be good days, there's going to be bad days, and have good friends that you can rely on, that hey, if stuff goes south, somebody you can depend on, and have a good community. I mean, if worse comes to worse, and I hope it never does, because these people who want to scream civil war, I want this, are people who have never had to be that monster outside the borders of this country. And the last place you want to start spilling blood is on your own country that you've fought so hard for to do great things. And at the end of the day, man, it's just words when it comes down to what you're talking about, those scraps. It's just words and emotions. In If we can't check ourselves when we need to and show ourselves, hey, we can be better than what they assume we can be, then we're going to fail every single step of the way. And one thing about me, and I tell this about other people too, man, when I'm on the range and I show people how to shoot with a non-dominant hand, I hear people say, "Oh, grab the gun with your weak hand." And I'm like, no. You know why? You know why I don't call it weak? Because subconsciously, I'll actually believe that that is weak. And there's nothing on this body that's weak. And I think that's how everybody should look at themselves. And if you think that there's something that isn't strong on you or in you, you know what? Find a way to improve each and every day. Because if you got to give yourself a cheat sheet and you read that every day, don't skip the gym. Don't skip my steps. Don't drink soda. Don't whatever it might be that your crutch is. Hey, be there when the kids get home, and don't give them a fucking excuse of why you can't play or why you can't freaking do their homework. Don't come up with an excuse why you can't help your wife or your wife can't help you. It's There's a lot that goes on every single day, but when we're running through this life that I like to call a marathon, we're going to burn out really fast. If you can slow down a little bit and sprint when you need to, walk when you need to, and jog when you need to, you're going to master it.
There's that it's a cheesy line, but it goes to what you're saying. When you can't run, walk; when you can't walk, crawl; when you can't, crawl, do this; when you can't do that, get somebody to carry you, never quit type of thing. So I like that right there. And maybe let's just end it there. Because even you just said a million things and there's so many responses and comments, but I think the other thing, just to piggyback with Triple X, is, and don't be afraid. Right. And that's the great thing. If you do have a family, what a great support network. I mean, that's your fire team right there. That is your tribe. That's your family, man. And make sure it's okay, or find that other veteran or find that buddy. Hey, don't forget, guys. And I'm here to say it. I like the fact that I've met some of you guys. I've never had a beer with some of you, but I talked to some of you guys on the phone, and I like I like the people I'm talking to because we're men and you have guy conversations and you give each other a hard time. And you know, and that's what guys do to blow off steam, because otherwise we just shove all that stuff down. That's not good for anybody. So don't forget about you. You are the most valuable, the most expensive, the most kick-ass weapon in your whole arsenal, right? It's you, it's your body, it's your brain, it's your heart, it's your family. Yeah, so good points right there, George. But then there's also a whole heck of a lot of other things too, man. So, you know, it's not like there's a cookie cutter solution to any of this. And I, unfortunately, I'm going to go on the record. We'll do, and I'll read the comments here in a second. I saw a comment for a part 2 and part 3. We'll definitely do it, but I'm just going to go on the record. There will be a life-changing event this year. I don't know what it is.
I'm not coming out of the closet.
What's that?
Are you coming out of the closet?
See? There you go. That's it. Only the way Triple X can deliver. That's what we, look at. And that's, thank you, George, because you something you said earlier. I really like this other thing. C.S. Lewis. So what to George is saying, hey, look, you have to be prepared. Especially if you're a man. No offense, ladies. You need to be prepared too. But men, if you're the man, right, you have to be prepared. You are the leader of your household. You have to be squared away. But to George's point, but if the balloon does go up or things turn back south or whatever happens, wouldn't you rather be hanging out with your friends and your family, having a beer, barbecue or throwing, if when that moment happens, I think that's how I always interpreted that quote. When that moment does happen, no matter where you are and what you're doing, make it be a place where you want to be and you're in a good spot, with good people, because that's more than any amount of money. And none of us are making any money anymore because they're taking all that. I didn't even get into my comment on that stuff tonight. All right, we're going to do a part 2, part 3. Stay tuned. Let me just take us here with the final shout outs. Yeah, we're just about 10 minutes after. Trying to get it down to an hour. I don't know if that's ever going to happen. Maybe an hour and 15 is the realistic, because I looked at the clock. There's a little timer over here that I can see. You guys can't see. And it was like 40 minutes. I had no idea George and I had been talking for 40 minutes. I was like, holy crap, what just happened there? So, but we're trying, but here, let me just wrap it up. Yeah, AVV. No one's talking about that. AVV, nowhere. And then we're just passing a bill with more money that's dumping into these bullshit programs, these things that I thought, we all just voted that we didn't want to have happen anymore. So that's just another further dot on the wall. Hey, like, that's such a sellout. They're like, either we were totally duped or there's something else going on behind the scenes that we don't know yet, Gene, great night, parts 2 and 3 needed. Yeah, chat at the grown-ups table. Roger that, Gene. Thank you, sir. AVV, Americans aren't ready to see U.S. streets becoming a battlefield. That was in response to your comment, Triple X, your conversation. You want to address that real quickly? I want something to add, but we are being conditioned to see that, AVV, because we're being conditioned to start seeing America. We're being conditioned to see people fight against our institutions not care about the rule of law or the Constitution. The people don't even know the Constitution, blue team versus red team. We're already being conditioned for that anyway. So, and one side already thinks they're at war because we kind of already are.
Yep. Totally agree.
George, nothing else to add on that one right there?
No.
Then?
You're
okay.
Good.
Lermy something saying he loves your work ethic and attitude.
Thank you,
Mike.
brother.
Mike saying good night.
Good
Matt,
night.
I'm not 100% sure, but he's laughing about something one of us said. Gene
Probably
said,
about you coming out of the closet, going to be a life-changing event this year.
I'm sure that's what it was. And, and then it must have been because Gene said boom right then and there. So Gene was thinking the same thing. That's, you got to be right, because then Learn Me Something is laughing. So there it is. But I am not coming out of the closet, Start up a closet back here. Thanks, guys. That's good. I see. That's what we need. Just even that little bit of laughter takes it down, gets some of those stress rocks out of your rucksack a little bit. That was awesome. It's going to get worse before it gets worse. Matt, probably Angry Viking. Comment AVV said, God bless you guys. Good night, y'all. And then Matt just said, bingo, George. All right. Thanks a lot. That's it right there. I'm not showing any more comments anywhere. I'm shutting off the comments going forward. All right, Triple X, are you going to do the little drum rolly thing? I got one more Steve joke.
It is late, so I don't want to get a complaint, but what I'm going to do, because I'll be available for these because I'm going to be traveling. So I'm going to record myself doing that on my drums, and then I'll play it on my phone. That way you can actually have it for one of your jokes from here on out.
If you send it to me with this new software, I can put it in the software and I could actually play it as I'm talking on it.
I'll easily do that for you.
Okay. Yeah, no, that'll be awesome. All right. So here's our last joke of the night. Hey, boys and girls, before I kick off with the joke, hey, and you guys are all great. I don't need to say it, but even for those who are watching it on demand afterwards, but everybody in the chat, saying thanks to George, and my hat is off to George. I'm serious. That guy, it's all teamwork, man. And I was so lucky to have him, at my side for, a couple. Yeah, we'll talk more about that stuff in the future. So, but he's good people. He's good people. And George, I didn't want to, when I commented, I'll save that for offline. That's a personal question. But hey, seriously, everybody, thanks to George for being here. But let's not forget, thanks to George's family, he's away from his family and he's home, and being home, right? When you are home, time is precious, and time is worth way more than money when you're home. And he's taken his time and spending it here with us tonight. So George, seriously, as always, I really appreciate it, brother. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Especially when you throw me under the bus. So,
I just threw you out of the closet. That's all I did.
Or out of the closet. Yeah, there it is right there. All right, here's the joke. Brandon it on this one. I got to hand it to short people, everyone. I got to hand it to short people, seriously, because they can't reach it on their own. Steve, Al, you know who you are, sir. Thank you for the humor. Oh, they're just dad jokes. Everybody, don't get angry.
Nice.
Triple X, final comment, sir.
I appreciate you guys having me on, as I'm looking forward to part 2 and 3.
All right, everybody. Hey, in the meantime, go back, rewind it, listen to George, make it right, do your best, stay on top of things, be prepared as best you can, get right. Make sure the people that, are close to you, they know that you love them and you got their 6, and yeah, shit's going to get worse before it gets worse. And on that cheerful note, thanks for everybody for watching. Thank to everybody in the chat. Appreciate the chatsters. Thanks for the comments. And I guess I got to plug it. Otherwise I'll get grief from Questview or somebody. Learn me something probably. Yeah. Hey, please like, subscribe, share. It is true. Comment after the video, comment on comments, all that stuff. The algorithm. And see, there's just another thing right there. Here's what we're about to see. Final prediction. Nothing's going to happen with Epstein. It's going to be slow rolled, just like Section 230 was. Has anything changed in censorship in America? No, that was a big thing. And then the next thing comes, and then before you know it, the statute of limitations or the public interest is gone, and no one in the Senate talks about it at all anymore, and nothing changes, and we move on to the next shit sandwich, and you got to take a bite. So there you go. One more positive, cheery thing to end it with right there. All right, reach out if you got questions, comments. Thank you for being here on CLS After Dark. We'll see you next Wednesday, and I'll have some other videos coming out between now and then. But as always, keep thinking, keep moving, never quit. Huge shout out to Triple X. Thank you, George, one more time. We'll see everybody next time. All right, everybody, be good. Woo!